My poetry project is on poem number 11 from the Crow's Eye View collection by Korean poet Yi Sung. This is the poem. The porcelain cup is similar to my skull. When I grasp the cup firmly with my hand, an arm out of nowhere sprouts on my arm like a graft, and the hand on that arm raises the porcelain cup high and hurls it to the wooden floor. Since that arm is safeguarding the porcelain cup, the thing that is broken into pieces then is my skull that is similar to the porcelain cup. Even if my arm had moved before the graft arm slid into my arm like a snake, the white paper that warded off the flood would have ripped. Yet my arm continues to safeguard the porcelain cup. About Yi Sung. He spoke against the occupation of Korea through his various forms of art. He not only did poetry, he also did painting and sketches and stuff like that. He was born September 23rd, 1910 as Kim Hae-kyung in Seoul, which is the modern capital of South Korea. He died April 17th, 1937 in Tokyo after being released on bail from prison. He graduated from university with honors in architecture in 1928, and this is when he first used Yi Sung, which was in a graduation book. There isn't any other record of him using it before this. And in 1934, he became a member of the literary magazine called The Circle of Nine, which included other Korean modernist poets. The Japanese occupation of Korea occurred from August 29th, 1910 to August 15th of 1945, which is effectively almost a whole 35 years. And it was enacted by a treaty between Japan and Korea in 1910, although some believe it was forced, and that treaty relinquished all of Korea's governmental power to Japan, and it ended when the Japanese surrendered towards the end of World War II. Japan's goal with Korea was to make it more Japanese, so making it into a first world country with industrialization and railroads and things like that. While this was viewed as a positive thing for Japan, it wasn't a positive thing for Korea. Native Koreans were forced out of their homes and off of their land, and some were even forced into labor. That was in Japan, so they were taken out of Korea and sent to Japan. There was a ton of censorship on what Koreans could and couldn't make and couldn't produce. There was comfort women, which was typically girls aged 12 to 17 who were forced into prostitution under the guise that they were leaving for factory work or seamstressing. And in 1939, cultural assimilation began to become the goal of Japan by making a decree that Native Koreans had to change their name to fit Japan's naming system. So how does this all relate to the poem? The main focuses I found within the poem was the porcelain cup being compared to a skull, an extra arm that grows and retracts, and the attempt to break the porcelain cup but instead breaking the skull. And how I read this was that the porcelain cup was the identity, the Native Korean identity, and the skull is the one identity that Native Koreans were forced to have on the outside in order to survive the Japanese occupation. And the arm is representing the occupation. So the intent was to harm the porcelain cup, in this case the Korean identity, in order to make it more Japanese, but instead the porcelain cup is still being protected by the Korean identity. It's not going to be let go. It's something precious, and through occupation became fragile in some points. So overall, I believe that the poem by Isang was a metaphor for what it was like for Native Koreans during the occupation and how dark it could be. And these are my resources. Thank you.